Hey guys, Katie here. So today I am going to be talking about my positive birth story / experience. So if you guys are interested, then just keep on watching. So guys, as you know, I have been pregnant for what seems like forever. Yeah, 9 months. It's almost a whole year. It goes by slow, but then it kind of goes by fast, if that makes any sense. My newborn is about 9 days old. So he was born on December 3rd, 2023. So initially I was really scared to get induced. I've had a few doctors throughout the 9-month journey. My one doctor, she suggested getting induced if I want to have her as my doctor. Initially, I said no because with my firstborn son, I didn't get induced. He came naturally. I switched to a new OBGYN towards the end of my pregnancy, and basically I told her I wanted my baby to come naturally. However, it was just kind of a mess because we didn't really have anyone to watch my other son while going into labor. So I decided that I did want to get induced, and honestly, it was one of the best decisions I have ever made. I was so happy with the results. So basically we were waiting for my due date. By the time I had my due date, the baby still wasn't there. So I'm glad that I actually ended up getting induced as well. And I'm so grateful for my neighbor who was able to watch my son while I was in the hospital for that whole time span of being in labor. So I could be in the hospital with my husband, and yeah. And also minors aren't allowed in the labor and delivery ward, which is completely understandable. But yeah, so my time to be induced, like my induction date and time, was December 2nd, 10 p.m. at the hospital that I chose. So I went to the hospital, and basically they gave me like a cup to pee in, and then they told me to get undressed and put on like the hospital gown and then put on like the hospital socks. So that's what I did. And then basically the nurse had started the process for me. Yeah, but like initially we did bring my son to the hospital, and my husband had to take him home because he wasn't allowed, and I was kind of freaking out. So I called my neighbor, and she didn't answer, but then I texted her, and then she was like, yeah, I can watch your son. So thank God that happened. But yeah, so basically I was like at the hospital by myself for maybe like, I don't know, 30 minutes to an hour, which is fine because like I wasn't induced yet, but they were getting like the process started. So my nurse was really cool. Honestly, like I'm so grateful for all the nurses there. They were just amazing. They did an amazing job. Her name was Lottie. So she put the IV in my wrist. If you guys see those little like snake bite thingies, that's from my IV. So she started the IV process going. I had my giant Stanley cup as well, which was honestly like a lifesaver during the whole freaking process because I was in labor for a long time. So yeah, and I got really thirsty because they gave me like pain medication. But yeah, so she put the IV in me, and then I think she put the, what is it called? The blood pressure thingy around my arm. I have no idea what that thing is called, but you guys know what I'm talking about. So my husband went to go drop off my son, and then he came back and we were chilling. So I kept having to go pee. Like, I don't know why. I think it's because like the IV was giving me liquids, and then also I was really thirsty and like drinking out of my Stanley cup. So I would roll the IV over to the bathroom when I had to go pee, and then I would just roll it back, and then they would plug me back in. And if the nurse wasn't there, my husband just helped plug in my little blood pressure thingy and the IV thingy. I do not know medical terms, you guys. So now I remember having to go pee again, and then I basically asked my husband to get my skincare out of the suitcase for me so I could just get it over with and brush my teeth and stuff, because the nurse mentioned that I would be getting an epidural soon. So I just honestly wanted to get all that done before getting the epidural. And yeah, because after the epidural I would be like bound to the hospital bed and like not be able to get up because I wouldn't be able to like feel my legs or anything. So yeah, so at this point I'm 6 centimeters dilated, which is crazy because I was like fine and like walking around and stuff. And yeah, so I'm finishing up my skincare, and the guy who's doing the epidural comes in, and he was like, oh, okay, like, are you ready? And I told him and the nurse, oh, can you please just give me 1 minute? I just want to finish up my skincare. And the guy was just like, is she okay? Because I was walking around like totally fine, and he was like, wow, like she seems pretty happy. So I finished that up, and I'm so happy that I did because I felt really good going into the process. And I just want to say, with my first pregnancy, with my firstborn son, I did not get an epidural. Like everything happened naturally and like super fast. I wanted to get an epidural, but basically at that specific hospital, they couldn't find my vein to put an IV in, and everything just happened so fast. So I felt everything and whatnot, and I have no regrets, and like I couldn't really do anything about it, but it was just a completely different process. And initially I was actually kind of scared to get an epidural because I know that there's risks, and also, I mean, I just never had one before, so I was honestly just really nervous. So yeah, I was like, for a while I was on the fence. I wasn't sure if I wanted to get an epidural or do it naturally again. Leading up to my pregnancy, I watched tons of YouTube videos on labor and delivery, pros and cons of getting an epidural, giving birth naturally, yada, yada, yada. I decided at the end of the day, I wanted to have a positive birth experience, and I chose to get an epidural. And not that my first pregnancy was a negative experience. However, I felt like I did suffer, and I felt like what my body went through was traumatic. So basically, you know, I just wanted to have a positive experience, and that's what happened, thank God. So it was a really good decision, thank goodness. But anyways, they had me sit on the hospital bed and kind of like hunch over and like hug a pillow like that. And the guy told me not to move. I think he numbed the area first, and then he told me like not to move, and then he like stuck the needle in. I guess it was kind of like an intense process because my husband was watching and he had to go sit down because I don't know, it was like too much. And the nurse and the guy doing my epidural, they were telling me that some husbands have actually fainted before while watching their spouse slash partners get epidurals, and I thought that was kind of funny. So yeah, it didn't hurt. Did it hurt? I honestly can't remember. I think they like numbed me first with like a syringe, and then I think they went in with another syringe for the actual like epidural part of it. So yeah, so it was honestly like a pretty easy process. So after they did it, they put a band-aid on my back, and yeah, it was very, very quick and easy. And then they had me lie down and get comfortable on the hospital bed. I think they took a little bit of time to let the epidural kick in. I'm not really too sure. I can't really remember. Shortly after the epidural, they started the induction process. So basically what the nurse was telling me was that like I had a couple different options on like how to get me induced. So basically they were checking like how dilated I was, and they figured that the best route to go for my induction would be the balloon method or process or whatever. And I have never heard of this before. And when she explained it to me, I'm not gonna lie, I was like kind of scared and nervous, which is understandable. So basically the process is like what she told me was that they were going to place 2 balloons inside of me, and then like once the balloons came out on their own, that's when I would like go into labor basically. She told me that she could give me pain medication because it would be like uncomfortable, and I was just really scared, to be honest. And I told her, yeah, I was like really scared, and she was like, you know what, we can give you pain medication. And I was like, okay, let's do it. So basically they give you fentanyl, like a small amount of fentanyl as like the pain medication, which sounds like really intense, like whoa, like I don't know about that, you know. But everything was fine, they know what they're doing. And yeah, so I think she put it in my IV, and she told me like my head would be spinning a little bit. Overall, that was a good experience, except I felt like during some of it, like I felt nauseous, which is normal for me because anytime I'm on like any sort of pain medication, like I get so nauseous, which I hate being nauseous. But overall it did help. Plus I was getting a bit of a headache being there, and obviously like the pain medication helped with the nausea. But yeah, so the whole balloon thing happened, and it wasn't as bad as I thought it was gonna be, and it's probably because of the pain medication and the size of the balloon. I mean, from what I remember, it wasn't too big, thank God. But yeah, so she put the balloons inside of me, and then she would come and check on the balloons like, I don't know, maybe like every 15-20 minutes. So she would come in and like tug on the balloons, which honestly like was kind of uncomfortable, but since I was like on the pain meds and had the epidural going, it wasn't too bad at all. It was just like uncomfortable. But honestly, like if I didn't have pain meds or the epidural, I would probably be like in pain and even more uncomfortable. So I'm really grateful for the pain meds and the epidural. So yeah, she also like placed, I think it's called a catheter. I know this is like so intense to talk about and say, but this is, you know, raw and real what happens. Since I couldn't like feel my legs or get up or anything, and you know, I keep having to use the bathroom, she placed the catheter like in my urethra, I believe, and again, like if I could feel, that would have like freaked me out. But since I was on pain meds and like I was numb, like it was totally fine. But yeah, it's like a scary process. But yeah, like thank God they know what they're doing, and yeah, I'm just so grateful for the whole team. So basically, maybe like after 5 or 6 times coming in the room to like tug on the balloons, finally the balloons came out when she tugged it, and so I was ready to go into labor. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if I was already in labor at that point, but I think like the baby was even more ready to come out, like once the balloons came out. Do you know what I'm saying? So yeah, so that basically induced me. My water never broke by itself, so they broke it for me. And yeah, and so I guess my contractions started after that, but honestly, like I could not feel any contractions whatsoever. And if you've ever been pregnant before, like you would know that contractions really, really hurt. I feel like they almost hurt worse than like the baby coming out. I remember with my first pregnancy, like I was suffering with my contractions, like just so much pain. So I did not feel my contractions whatsoever, which is amazing. Thank you, epidural and pain meds. So they told me to like let them know if I needed more fentanyl, but honestly, like I never felt the need to like ask them for more. Towards the end, I almost felt like I should have, just because I had really bad heartburn. Like out of anything that could have hurt me that night, I had really bad heartburn. Like throughout my pregnancy, oh my God, my heartburn was like next level, just like out of this world painful. And normally I do not get heartburn at all. Like it only happens when I'm pregnant. Yeah, my heartburn was like next freaking level. And I asked them for a Tums. They were allowed to give me one, which is not enough. It did not help me. But you know, I should have asked for more fentanyl, just like for my heartburn, honestly. But other than that, I was not suffering. Just the heartburn was like, ugh. The heartburn really sucked. This whole video is like TMI, so I don't really care speaking about this. I think it's kind of funny. So no, I didn't feel my contractions, but I think like when I did have the contractions, like I just ended up passing gas. So I thought that was really funny because it was just coming out. Okay, so yeah, that was hilarious. What else? So basically they kept checking on me. They would leave the room and then come and check on me, leave the room, come and check on me. Luckily with the epidural, I was able to get some rest. Obviously, I was there like really late at night, so I was able to get some sleep, which was really nice. And the nurse also told me like, yeah, get rest while you can. So my husband and I were able to get some rest, which is good. But then I feel like because of the fentanyl and the just like having an epidural, it really like affected my low blood pressure, and my IV kept beeping and beeping and beeping because of my low blood pressure. And that was so annoying because we were trying to sleep, but oh my God, like every 5 minutes the IV started to beep, and it was so loud and annoying. So I would get the hospital remote and call the nurse, and then she would have to come in and turn off the beeping sound, and she was just like, you need to do some deep breathing. And I was like, okay. So I was doing my deep breathing, and it would help sometimes with the beeping, but then I was like deep breathing more consistently, and then it just really wasn't helping with the beeping. So that was just like super annoying because we couldn't get any rest from that point. So yeah, this was like a really long process, to be honest. So, you know, I was there 10 p.m. on Saturday night, and then Sunday morning at 8:53, I believe, is when my newborn was born. So yeah, so it was like happening quickly. More nurses came into the room, and then my doctor from my OBGYN, and basically they set everything up. They had these big lights come down from the ceiling. Basically, they were checking on the baby's heart rate shortly before he was born. So yeah, they set everything up. They gave me this thing called a peanut ball. So you know those like bouncy balls, those like fitness balls that pregnant women bounce on? So it's kind of like that, but like smaller and sort of shaped like a peanut. So they had me put that between my legs. Well, honestly, they put it between my legs because I could not feel my legs at all. So when they told me to like turn over or do something with my legs, like I just couldn't. I was like, I'm sorry, but I can't. Like, you guys have to move me because I cannot feel my legs. So they helped put the peanut ball between my legs, and then they placed me on my right side, and this was like helping with the baby's heart rate. If I was just laying normally, like the baby's heart rate was going down. So that was obviously like, that's really scary to hear. But luckily I was in a really positive mindset, and yeah, I just knew I had to like breathe and like be calm and know that everything is going to work out, and thank God that it did. They had to keep like flipping me to the side. So after I was on my right side, then they flipped me to my left side, and then they would check the baby's heart rate, make sure it's okay. And then if it wasn't, they would flip me on my right side, and then it would help his heart rate somehow. I don't know how, but thank God they knew what they were doing. So yeah, they flipped me several times, and then finally, closer to my baby being born, they had me lay on my back on the hospital bed, and then they like reclined the bed backwards. So I was like slanted backwards, just like laying down. I didn't even know the hospital bed went backwards, like reclined. I was like upside down pretty much. So yeah, that was like really weird. And then finally he was ready to come out, and then they kind of just like, they made my hospital bed like more aligned and straight, and then they got the stirrups out, and then they helped place my legs on each of the stirrups. Then he was ready to be born. So one of the nurses asked if I remembered how to push, and basically I was like, yeah, I remember how to push. And then she told me like more in depth of like what I had to do. So basically I had to hold my thighs, like underneath my thighs, and then she told me that I had to take a deep breath, hold for 3 seconds, and then push like I have to poop. So that's what I did. And the first couple times was like kind of difficult, and I was definitely doing it wrong, and I think that's because I just could not feel anything. And that's another reason why I was afraid to get the epidural. But honestly, the nurses, like, they really helped guide me through the whole like pushing process. So they would tell me to push, and then they would tell me to not push. But like once I was doing it right, they were like, yeah, like good job, okay, do it again, hold your breath, push. And finally he was crowning, and shortly after he came out, like pretty quickly. Yeah, the whole process of that, of like the baby being born, was like really, really quick. I had my husband right there. We were like crying because we were just so happy. I'm getting emotional. So he was born, and I just couldn't believe it. They placed him on my chest. So they placed him on my chest, and I was just so elated. I was just so happy that he was born and healthy, and he was crying. And yeah, he was reaching for my face, and it was just honestly like one of the most beautiful moments of my life. So he was 6 pounds, 14 ounces, which is a little bit heavier than my firstborn, just like barely. My firstborn was 6 pounds, 10 ounces. So yeah, and he honestly looks exactly like my firstborn, and it's just crazy, and he's so cute. I'm pretty sure he was 18 inches long. We asked the nurses, we were like when they were cleaning him up after I gave birth, we were asking when can he get circumcised, because with our firstborn, they literally asked us if we wanted him to be circumcised. We said yeah. They took him to go get circumcised like maybe like 5-10 minutes after he was born, and boom, it was done. Since we live in Nevada now, I think it's like a Nevada thing where they do not circumcise the baby in the hospital. You have to like contact your pediatrician. They have to contact a urologist. The urologist contacts you, and you have to go to a specialist's office to frickin' get it done. And you literally have like 3 weeks to get him circumcised, or else you have to pay like a even bigger fee. And yeah, and then also like the quicker and the sooner the better. So yeah, we are in the process of getting him circumcised. I have to call the specialist and schedule it. So yeah, so that's annoying, but you gotta do what you gotta do. So yeah, what else? Oh yeah, so I don't know if it was like my doctor or one of the nurses, but like literally after he was born, they were telling me that like the umbilical cord was wrapped around his neck, and that is like really scary to hear. That was one of my biggest fears with giving birth. Like, oh my God. Yeah, that's like a huge fear of mine. But luckily, they knew what they were doing. Thank God. Like, I'm so, so grateful for them. I cannot say that enough. They were freaking amazing. And yeah, because of them, my son was born safely. And I'm just so relieved. But to hear that is so scary, and thank God they didn't tell me that when I was still in labor. And they probably do that on purpose to not freak out the person giving birth. So yeah, I remember when I told my mom that, oh my God, I started crying because that's just so freaking scary. So really, really grateful and thankful that nothing bad happened. So yeah, so shortly after he was born, they said I had a slight tear, and then they gave me some stitches, and still I couldn't feel anything. Like, I'm telling you guys, this was like a freaking pain-free birth. Like, are you serious? Like, compared to my firstborn, I was in so much pain. Like I told you guys, I was suffering, and it definitely was a slight tear because with my first pregnancy, it stung when I went pee after, which is horrible because like, how can you go like a week, 2 weeks, every time you go pee and then it stings? Oh my God. And then having to go poop, like forget about it. But lots of women deal with that pain. It's normal, you know? And so shortly after, they helped me get into a wheelchair because, girl, my legs were like just non-existent at that point. They helped me get into the hospital chair, and then they had us switch wards. So they switched us to the postpartum ward. So they wheeled me over. My husband was bringing all of our stuff to that room as well. It was like a much smaller room. Like the room that I gave birth in was huge, and like, it was honestly like kind of fancy. But yeah, but the postpartum room is like really tiny. And you guys, like, I'm not gonna lie, like I get depressed if I have to stay in the hospital because it's just not it. Like the channels on the TV suck. I knew I should have brought my laptop so I could watch like Netflix or something. So if I ever have a third child, like I'm definitely bringing my laptop. The only reason I didn't is because I was like, man, this is way too much stuff already. Like I always overpack, so it's a me problem. But yeah, so we moved into the small room. They had like a little hospital bassinet type of thing for my newborn son. Also, if you guys don't already know, my son's name is Noah. I love his name so much. I chose it, and my husband chose his middle name. So they had like a little bassinet for Noah, and yeah, and it's really nice because they provide you with diapers, baby wipes, nipple cream. They provide you with like postpartum pads and, you know, disposable underwear. Even though I brought my own, I had like, I'll pop it up here. I bought this like thing from Target. It's like a Frida postpartum essentials kit, which is super, super helpful. So I was able to use that once I ran out of the hospital stuff. But yeah, they give you like a peri bottle. They give you these like pads that get icy once you break them. I think they give you like normal pads, and then like witch hazel pads. That was really cool. I called the nurse because I had to go pee, and I was really nervous. Like, I don't know, my epidural was still kicking in. It was like still working, so I needed them to walk me to the toilet and like basically help me go pee, like help me get up and stuff. I couldn't really feel anything like when I went pee. Then like once the epidural wore off, I was kind of nervous for that pee. I like did not want to feel any stinging. I didn't want to feel any pain, and surprisingly I felt no pain. Like I felt no stinging whatsoever, and I was just like, is this real? Like, are you serious? And I guess it's just because like for whatever reason I had less of a tear this time, but thank God, like, because honestly that's like one of the things I was worried about the most is just like not being able to go pee like pain-free, you know what I'm saying? So that was a huge relief. I was really like sleep deprived because the baby kept waking up and stuff, which is so normal. Sitting down though like really hurt for me. I don't know, my butt like really hurt, and I don't know why, but it was just like a lot of pressure. And then also, you know, you're kind of like constipated for those first few days, but yeah, just like the pressure. So like if I did feel any postpartum pain, it was just like with sitting down, there was just a lot of like pressure and it just really hurt, which is interesting because going pee didn't hurt, but then like every day, like sitting down on the bed or like on the chair, it was just like really painful. So that was honestly like really hard because, you know, you want to enjoy this time with your newborn, but you're also like physically healing. So it's just kind of like a mental battle, like having to deal with that. And then also just having to be somewhere you really don't want to be, like just you don't want to be at the hospital at all. A positive thing is that my husband brought Bradley and I some sushi. He asked what I wanted for dinner. I did not want any food from the hospital because A, nothing is vegan. There was like one vegan thing, but it was like a lentil loaf and it does not sound good. So he was like, what do you want? And I know this like really great vegan sushi place that's literally like 5 minutes away from the hospital. So I was like, I want daikon vegan sushi. So he went and got us vegan sushi. So that postpartum dinner, oh my God, core freaking memory, you guys. I had the curry ramen, so good. And then I had the yuba sushi roll. Freaking incredible, and it was like so fresh, and I was so hungry because I did not eat. And yeah, so that'll always hit. Yeah, I'll always have that amazing core memory of having daikon vegan sushi for my postpartum dinner. Yeah, so then on top of that, like breastfeeding is kind of difficult after giving birth because it's just like really uncomfortable at first, you know, and I did struggle with breastfeeding like the first time around with my firstborn. So yeah, I was struggling. There was a lactation nurse that I was able to talk to, and then I did talk to the other nurse about it, and I was like, look, like my nipples are hurting, this is like very uncomfortable. And they were kind of like observing how I was breastfeeding, and they were like, he's latched on pretty good. And I was like, is he? Because I'm hurting and I don't want to do this. But I really was trying, and I did not want to break down and start using formula in a bottle. But you know what, I was like, this is gonna be like what's best for me and my son, like at this point. And I figured what's best is to let my boobs heal and give myself a break and top him off with formula. And that's also what the nurse said. She was like, I have 3 kids, like, you know, no matter how much knowledge and practice you have with breastfeeding, like it's not always going to be an easy journey. And just like hearing her say that was really like relieving for me. And she was like, look, if you want, here's what you can do. This is what worked for me. Maybe it'll work for you. You can try it if you want. She was like, I breastfed on the left side, and then I breastfed on the right side 10 minutes each, and then I topped off the baby with formula. It honestly seemed like a good compromise, so I was like, okay, like let me try that. So I basically did that, and it helped a lot. Monday we were discharged. We weren't discharged until maybe like 3-4 p.m. I would say. Monday, you know, I've been at the hospital since Saturday night. So Monday, I was just really exhausted. And then like physically, I was just in pain, like sitting for so long. And like I told you guys, like I was just hurting, you know, sitting down, like just really hurt. Monday was rough because I was just like, I was just over being at the hospital, feeling like I really want to go home, and you know, I let myself cry because I just was not feeling it. And then finally, you know, they released us and I was just so relieved. And yeah, we left the hospital and took our baby home, and it's been a journey. You know, actually like the first night back home, I was able to rest because I just wasn't at the hospital anymore. So it was really nice. You know, that was a treat, just like being in my own bed. I was able to get some sleep. And when I woke up Tuesday morning, I felt so rested, and I'm so grateful for that. And then on Tuesday, we took Noah to his first pediatrician appointment. So basically, I've just been getting used to the new routine, having a newborn at home. Yeah, it's been pretty awesome. You know, I've been like sleep deprived here and there, which is kind of rough, and lightheaded because I'm, you know, losing some blood. I'm just trying to be healthy. I'm grateful that I have an awesome support system, and yeah, just so grateful that my baby is healthy and happy. Yeah, it's been really awesome just spending time with him, you know? I think I covered like all the things to talk about. I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. I remember with my firstborn, somebody requested a birth story video, and I do remember like posting it, but then I deleted it because honestly it wasn't as positive as it wasn't as positive as this experience. So yeah, I definitely feel more confident posting this video because it was honestly such a positive experience. So yeah, I hope you guys really enjoyed this story / experience. I hope this helps you in your experience as well. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.